About starting right where Luke was, the bottles went on, they came off over there. We'll talk about that some more.
Got distracted.
I know, I don't even know what I'm doing. Behind you is some new equipment that we'll be adding in. We bought that from a brewery that unfortunately went out of business, but that's a 6-pack erector and stuffer. So the 6-packs will get these big magazines. We'll have a bunch of 6-packs in them through a series of vacuums and levers and cams and air in there. They're going to pop them open, get them on a conveyance. The boxes will come underneath. It's going to shove the 4 6-packs in each one. At that point, they'll move on to what's called the drop packer that we'll address over there. But this is basically, it's a big piece of machinery, but this is us bench testing it. We bought it used. We have to set it up and kind of get it all working over here before we actually try to plug it in, because we can't just have that in our way over there without it working. So that's what's going on right there. Usually this is a wall of all those kegs you saw in the warehouse and our cans. When we do canning runs, we have a mobile canning line that comes in and sets up right in this general area right here. But in order to do that, we have to have cellared beer, which Mr. Luke Otter is going to speak to you about.
All right, so like Jeff said, once that wort's cooled down, goes through that heat exchanger. The only time again we add oxygen. This is when we'll add our yeast. So these conical vessels here, these are fermenters. So we've got 6 of these single size, 7 of these double size. This is actually our newest one right here. We just put in last month. So as this wort's going in, we'll have a tea in line. We'll actually pitch the yeast in there. We'll set a temperature on the tank. As you pass down, you probably saw that bubbling down there on that tank there. Here's some over here too, but that's actually active fermentations. That beer was just made yesterday, so it's doing fermentation, all that. For our ales, primary fermentation takes about 3 days. During those 3 days, we take measurements on that, and we're looking at what's called gravity. We have an instrument that tells us basically how much sugar has been eaten by that yeast, and tells us like, okay, once it hits a certain number, we're ready to do what's called bunging the beer. You can see there's valves on these tanks. What we do is we just come over and shut that valve. What that does is during that active fermentation, as that yeast is eating, it's producing alcohol and CO2. And what happens when we close that, it starts building up CO2 in that tank, and that yeast gets really sleepy and tired, and it'll flock to the bottom of these cones where we can harvest it for the next beer we're going to make. We'll do that with our both ale and lager yeast to keep it going. When it comes time and it gets too old, we'll get a new prop of yeast in. We'll generally throw that downtown, bring it back over here, repitch, and keep clean, good fermentation going. After that primary fermentation, we'll start cooling this beer down. Each one of these tanks has a temp controller on it with a program set to start dropping the temperature certain degrees. And in a certain amount of days, we'll take it down to 30 degrees. Generally with ales, that's about a 2-week process. With our lagers, it takes 30 days. So like our Oktoberfest, our Hellesbock, things like that, that takes a solid month of conditioning before we filter it. Once the beer's ready to be filtered, this big machine back here, this is a centrifuge. This is the one that they can actually still sell, I think, to the Middle East, because it doesn't split like uranium up. This machine has a bowl that spins at 8,200 RPMs. So that beer will go in, there's yeast in there, if it's dry hop, there's hop particulate. And that spins so fast, it takes all those solids out of that beer, it spins out to the side, and we get a nice bright beer that comes out, which then goes to these flat bottom vessels here called bright tanks. Hence the name bright tanks, bright beer. We try to do as much natural carbonation in the fermentation process as we can. We lose a little bit of CO2 in that centrifuge process as well. So each one of these tanks has what's called a stone, a carving stone that actually produces tiny bubbles of CO2 into solution of the beer to help us touch up carbonation for our beers to make sure they're ready for packaging. Have I lost anybody yet? Right, I'm doing good. So once they're in the bright tanks, that beer does not sit long because we only have 5 tanks. We've got 13 fermenters. So for example, 2 of these tanks will be filled up tomorrow. Our guy will come in, filter some beer. Monday I'm going to come in, I'm going to keg off a certain amount. Then Tuesday, I'm going to bottle the rest of these tanks out, and we'll filter beer back into them again on Wednesday. So it's just a constant cycle of keeping beer going so you guys can keep drinking it. Questions? Yes.
What's your cleaning process in between?
For our fermenters, we use sodium hydroxide. It's a lye that eats proteins. We use a 3% solution on that to make sure it's clean. With the bright tanks, we'll either do an acid wash, because that can actually work in a CO2 environment. Otherwise, we will completely drain the CO2 out of these, make sure it's flush and run caustic on those as well. For
Manual process, or is it all just
no, not
tanks?
really. I mean, we'll take, parts off and make sure they're manually clean, but there's a spray ball in the top of each one of these tanks that we'll hook hoses up. We've got a big pump that runs behind it and just make sure it gets on and clears everything out.
It's called CIP, clean in place. You're going to see it in all types of manufacturing, from dairies to anything that has
Anything that has
tanks and
food.
stuff. You're going to see pipes sometimes that say hot, cold, steam, CIP. CIP is for the cleaning process of a lot of production out there on the planet.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What in terms of the CO2 level, and what I mean,
Like how much CO2 we want in the beer?
I've had beers that are rather flat and written.
Yeah, we have a standard for each one of our beers here. It's very subtle. You probably won't notice it on most of our beers. Like our ale, we run at a 2.4 CO2 volume. Like our gold, we run at like a 2.5. You might notice if our Guavatas and some others, we run at a higher, like a 2.7. So I mean, it's subtle levels. It's kind of hard to really tell. We actually have an instrument that tells us what the carbonation is of the beer, so we can actually target that and make sure. We do a generally higher carbonation on this side just for the bottling process, because it helps in certain parts helping keep oxygen out of the bottles as well.
It does. We take a thing and we shake it. It gives us the temperature and the pressure, and then there's a chart that someone's developed that gives us. So if at 14 psi at 40 degrees, it's 2.25, and that 2.25 is what the brewers. Your mouth feel like a 2 is going to be classic, more to like your stouts and stuff. You get 3 and above, you're in the champagne, Coca-Cola type range. So we're in that more 2 to 4 to 2.5 kind of sparkly. If that helps, but
It is. Anybody else? All right, let's go talk about bottling.
well, once we have filtered beer, I kind of have to look at numbers every week. All I do is look at numbers. I'm trying to keep all the distributors happy out there so they can keep all their customers happy. It'd be a liquor store, a restaurant, or bar. So once we get a filtered beer on Monday morning, I'm looking at reports coming in from the different distributors, and I'm kind of ahead of this. I have to be, right now I'm working on the schedule into early January. So I'm looking out very predictive depletion numbers of what beer we're going to need, because I have to be for ales 2 weeks ahead. Our mix packs that we get, our variety packs, take 6 different beers. Those are a big time mover, especially coming up here with Thanksgiving and the Christmas time. So I have to have 6 different brews behind each one to withhold the beer to put in those. Keg wise, I look at what I need to keep the market going. I don't want to have, I can't just put 80 kegs out there that's going to last 5 months. We like fresh beer. So I'm trying to match it with 30 kegs because it's going to deplete like 8 every week. So I try to keep going. Every tap handle out there, I kind of like to say, has about 6 to 7 kegs to support it. Over there in our warehouse, you saw stacks of kegs. Some are clean, some are dirty. Every Friday we go get dirty kegs. We wash them back here on a keg washer, and then we'll fill them Mondays and Tuesdays. Then those clean, filled up kegs go out to the distributor where they're sitting in their beer cooler. And then when somebody orders a keg, it goes off to the bar. Well, that bar then has it in their cooler. Out in their alley, somebody's ashing on an empty keg that then the rep is going to pick up, put on a truck, go back to the distributor, sit until they get pallets full. We're going to get them back. We're going to wash them, fill them. So just to keep that one tap handle afloat takes multiple kegs in a position in the plant in the world. So if you have a friend that's sitting there with kegs in their basement, tell them to give them back to the brewers. Doesn't matter whose it is, they want it. Trust me, they're all scrambling for those kegs.
If you see it for sale, tell us. We might reward you if you bring it back to us.
The scrap yards will call us when people turn them in. The East Side Recycling calls us usually, because if we take kegs there, we have to have paperwork. basically so people aren't stealing kegs. And so if they get any, they usually call us, and he may buy them for $10 and ask us for the $10 just to